Morning, everyone. Welcome to the first ABL Market Briefing for 2025. My name is Mark McGowan. I'm the Global Managing Director for Maritime here at ABL. This month, we've got our annual review of shipping, which will be given by Paul Hill. Before we move on to that, the usual point. Today's briefing is accredited by the Chartered Insurance Institute, and delegates can get 1 hour's CPD towards their CII. As per usual, we would like your feedback on it so we can keep this accreditation valid and so that we can make sure that we tailor our presentations to your needs. Just a quick reminder, we'll be ending the online portion of the webinar today after the technical briefing, and the case reports will be done in person in the room. If you'd like any more information on that, please contact me afterwards. As I mentioned, today we've got Paul Hill, who's giving the presentation today on the shipping review of 2024 and what we might expect in 2025. Paul is ABL's Global Technical Director. And this month's case reports will be delivered by Colm Stevenson. Colm is a civil engineer on the ABL Group Engineering Development Scheme and is currently working for us here in London. As per usual, the information contained in these presentations and any opinions or comments expressed are those of the presenters and not necessarily those of ABL Group or any of our associated companies, and Chatham House rules apply. At the end of today's briefing, as I mentioned, we would like everyone to take a few minutes out to give us some feedback. This really helps us keep this accreditation live, so we really appreciate your assistance. Before I begin today, I would ask you to give a few moments' thoughts to the seafaring men and women at sea today. We at ABL are a signatory to the Neptune Declaration on Seafarer Wellbeing and Crew Change, and this is very helpful to help persuade governments and other agencies to assist in the freedom of movement of seafarers. If you're in a position to persuade your company to sign up, I think that most seafarers around the world would greatly appreciate it. For the learning of today, we'll be reviewing the significant shipping events and casualties for 2024. And we'll be looking at the trends in marine casualties across 2024 and why, and what perhaps to expect in shipping in 2025. And we'll be taking a quick look at new regulations, challenges, and risks. I'm now going to hand over to Paul Hill, who's going to do the technical part of the presentation.
Thank you, Mark, and Happy New Year to everyone here in Lloyd's and online. Let's have a look at what happened in shipping last year. So, busy year for shipping, as it usually is. But geopolitical events that shape shipping are going to be listed below here. It's the third year of the Russian-Ukraine war. No need to remind you of that. Russians and North Korea struck a deal, which was quite interesting. Israel and Iran conflict is brewing, something that might develop over the year. It's going to affect us all. The Red Sea ship attacks by the Houthis have continued and worsened, but eased off to the latter end of the year. Syrian civil war is notable, with Assad regime being ousted. Let's keep an eye on what's going to happen there. And interestingly enough, the South Korea political crisis is another area which could affect shipping in general. Looking at in focus at the Black Sea, the Ukraine-Russian war. I mentioned last year that the grain corridor had diminished. Hadn't been renewed by Russia, rather. But there's a new corridor that the Ukrainians had opened up, the unilateral corridor, which involves taking the shipping route close to the territorial waters of Romania and Bulgaria and Turkey. This has been quite successful. It's enabled grain and products to travel out of Ukraine and get to the rest of the world. Russia did make the statement last year that all merchant shipping in the area from Ukraine to the rest of the world is a viable target. But we haven't seen much of it, although we have. I'm going to go into a bit of detail on that in a minute. And there's mines everywhere in the Black Sea, laid by the Russians in the early days, which are also going to cause problems. But there's an initiative to solve that. Vital supply lines in the Black Sea cut off by Ukrainian drones. So this is a list of the events that happened in the Black Sea all of last year, and it's an extensive list, and it involves a lot of the attacks from the Ukrainian Navy to the Russian Navy. The fifth Russian warship was sunk in the beginning of the year. From February to July, there was more Russian warships sunk in Sebastopol and Chernihiv and Lake Danilo. In July, the Ukrainians attacked Russian ferries, which are operating the Kerch Strait to Crimea. And these events are not actually in the main news now. It's all sort of died away. But the Ukrainians have been very active in the Black Sea, and this is important. The Kursk offensive back in August triggered a major attack from Russia on the Ukrainian ports and some Ukrainian naval bases, scoring some hits there. Notably, on the 11th of September, the bulk carrier Aya was hit on departure from Chronomorsk, while on the 20th of September, the general cargo ship Golden Lion was hit in Odessa. So these merchant ships are being targeted and attacked. So the fall of the Assad regime in Syria leads Russia to losing a strategic port in Tartus, which is their naval base in Syria. That's an interesting development. And in mid-December, there was a gale in the Black Sea, which led to 3 Russian tankers and a barge sinking. Now that news came out, and everyone sort of latched on, thought there was a Ukrainian attack. Fortunately, it seemed to be just bad weather. But those Russian tankers wouldn't have been there hadn't it been for the war. So they were exposed to weather in an anchorage, which they wouldn't normally have been exposed to. There is a minor weapons running ship from the Russians was sunk following an explosion on the 23rd of December, and allegedly by Ukraine. And all intelligence needs that to be true. So looking back at some of the developments in drone technology, drones or UAVs have been very prolific in the battle, in the war in the Black Sea. Now, what's interesting here is that these vessels are boats that are being adapted to be unmanned. So they're not like the drones that we understand, that are flying around delivering Amazon parcels and taking pictures. These are drones in effect, but they are unmanned autonomous vessels, just at a different scale. But what has happened here, and what generally happens in wartime, is technology advances leaps and bounds. And these drones have always existed, but they've been developed by both sides, the Ukrainians and the Russians, to a huge effect during this war. The latest Ukrainian drone, the Magura 5, has been noted recently to actually have air-to-air missiles attached to it, which can be remotely fired, and has resulted in apparently a helicopter being shot down that was trying to defend the Russian Navy from one of these drone attacks. So it's developing, and apparently the next stage is to have these, surface drones actually firing missiles onto the land into sort of military infrastructure. So great advances here. I mean, these are operated by people, by the army or the intelligence agencies, remote places. There could be could be in America, they could be in South America, they could be anywhere in the world, and with deadly consequences. Moving on to the Red Sea. I mean, we're all aware of what's happening in the Red Sea with the Houthi attacks, and why the Houthis are attacking what they originally described as Israeli-related shipping, but that's deviated somewhat to sort of anything that remotely has a tie with Israel, or not. There have been ships that have no ties to Israel that have been targeted, and the extent is quite interesting. I had in my mind that we were limited to maybe 30 odd attacks, but when you look down at the data, and this is data that's been provided by ACLED, the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data. It's an organization, non-profit organization, collecting data from the internet. You see that actually there's been an awful lot of activity in the Red Sea over the last year, since the Houthis began attacking ships. And this is a little snip from their website. It's interesting. I'll put a little link to it there. I'm just going to show you just a little video from it, just to show you the extent. On the left-hand side there of all the ships that have been attacked. Not all merchant ships, there's some naval ships there, there's some land targets, but the orange dots are merchant ships that have been attacked in some sort of way. Not necessarily damaged, sunk, or fire. There's only been 2 sinking incidents and 30 plus serious incidents. But a lot of traffic has been targeted. And of course, remember the seafarers. It's just an important slide to remember here. We are concerned about seafarers at ABL. A lot of us were seafarers, and you've got to remember these people are manning these ships, and they must be terrified when they know they're going into certain waters. They have got a choice. If the area is declared a war zone, then they've legally got a choice of whether they want to enter it or not. However, it's not so easy when you're sailing across the Indian Ocean, coming into the Gulf of Aden and saying, please, Captain, I want to get off. It doesn't happen that way. You have to get to the next port to get off. So a lot of crew members are put into a situation that they don't want to be in. And this is obviously going to have an effect on crew morale, conditions, maintenance, whatever. So just list a few there. This is all available on the internet, all publicly available. So there were 3 crew members killed on the True Confidence back in March, and there was 1 killed on the MV Tutor. Also later on that year, and you remember the Galaxy Leader, which was held in Yemen, is still held in Yemen, and there's 25 crew members on board there still held as hostages. We mustn't ever forget those. Same as the piracy conditions, there's still hostages, crew members around the world held. So the Filipino seafarer organization says there's 740 Filipino crew members have suffered attacks in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden since the beginning of these attacks. And Somalian pirates, it's all gone quiet on the east coast of well, not gone quiet. The attacks on the east coast of Africa have diminished, but suddenly they're taking off again, and this is a reaction to the diversion of shipping from the Red Sea around Cape of Good Hope. More shipping coming close to Somali shores, and of course prompting the pirates to up their attacks. So keep an eye on that one this year. And the MSC Aries, I mean, not related to directly related to the Red Sea, but that was seized in Iran in April. 25 crew members were detained there. That could be an indication of what could potentially happen further on in this year if the conflict with Israel and Iran develops. Moving on to alternative fuels, and this is a hot topic for us all here in the room and for shipping. What progress has been made? I'm not going to go into the details of the regulations, but there has been some progress and some notable events. Hydrogen, the MAN and Mitsui, the big engine makers, have run a test using hydrogen actually in a slow-speed engine. It's a picture of it here, and it's been successful, and further tests will be carried out. Methanol had a lot of press last year because Maersk have started using that technology. Express feeders have started the first scheduled feeder network serviced by green methanol-powered vessels, and that's happening in Europe now. And ammonia, another hot favourite for alternative fuels on ships. NYK announced that there's been a conversion of the LNG-fueled tugboat Saki Cake into an ammonia-fueled tugboat, and it's been completed and it's successfully running on ammonia. Again, ammonia comes up next. There's a different type of ammonia. The Amagi has passed a major milestone with the successful maiden voyage of the world's first carbon-free ammonia-powered vessel. And this is a different type of ammonia made by green methods. And again, ammonia, another engine maker, HCI Hyundai Heavy Industries, rolls out another ammonia dual-fueled engine using the newly developed method of a high-pressure direct injection method. And methanol, Maersk completes first large container ship methanol conversion in China. Of course, on top of that, Maersk have a number of methanol new builds in the pipeline as well. So what we're seeing here is a take-up of the three main alternative fuels, with methanol, leading the way. But far above that on the order books is LNG. LNG is really going to be the one major. But as I've mentioned before and in the past, LNG is a stopgap really for meeting the zero carbon targets, as it is. It isn't as clean as we think. So moving on to see this alternative fuel progress here, and this is the charts from the DNV report. You can see here that's the biggest take up of new ships is the 226 LPG. Sorry, the 269. Sorry, hang on, get my things right. There is the 134. On the order book for LNG tankers, that's it. But with ammonia, methanol, and LPG coming behind that, there's no hydrogen there as such. Hydrogen is a slow runner, but hopefully we'll see more of that coming into these statistics in the future. AI and shipping. AI has been a word bandied around a lot this year. And it's developing rapidly. Now, AI is, by definition, is a machine's ability to perform the cognitive functions we associate with human minds, such as perceiving, reasoning, learning, interacting with the environment, solving problems, and exercising creativity. How is this going to affect shipping and us in this room? Well, I've highlighted a few out of this list. I mean, there's applications are enormous, but I've highlighted a few here which I'm going to discuss. Maintenance. This is one that's close to my heart and to your hearts as Hull Machinery insurers, me as ex-ships engineer and a surveyor. Maintenance has always been a big issue. And there's like three main types of maintenance. There's more, but these are the main types. And these generally used on ships. Time-based maintenance, which is based on running hours. traditionally used on ships. We have planned maintenance systems where the jobs are basically built on the owner's, the maker's manuals, recommended periods of maintenance and inspection, and it prevents failures to some extent. You're doing maintenance based on how often you're running the machinery, but it's not foolproof. And it can be excessive as well. Excessive cost for a ship owner doing maintenance that's not required. So there's another type of maintenance, condition-based maintenance, which is slightly different. And again, it's used a lot at ships. It's a monitoring of certain aspects, parameters, vibration, noise, doing regular oil analysis on machinery. And this is applied to certain machinery items like stern tubes, gearboxes, thrusters, isopod thrusters, for example. And it's very good. It's in a way it's monitoring what potentially is changing in that machinery and assessing whether it needs to be an intervention is necessary and you need to do some maintenance. But predictive maintenance is something which is fairly new. I mean, it can be done with present without AI in the present world, but it's very time and resource heavy. Basically, what predictive maintenance would be looking at is collecting data from sensors on critical components. So those sensors that are measuring pressures, temperatures, vibration, movement, etc., they're all working in real time on a second by second basis. Now, to read and to understand, analyze all that data on board by a human being is practically impossible. You take a snapshot at midday when you write the log, or when you hand over the watch at the end of 4 hours, you get a snapshot of what's happening, and you rely on the alarm system telling you if things are getting critical or not. Sometimes when the alarm comes up, it's too late. They're already a casualty. So AI can we hope, and we've been promised, actually read this data and highlight events that we might miss. So there might be a fuel injector that's just spurting it rather than spraying, and it's creating a slight difference in the exhaust temperature. This could be picked up by AI, and a trend could be shown, and you could point out to the engineer, you better have a look at that injector before it goes wrong. Something that might not have been picked up. So very interesting, and I'm keeping a close eye on this advancement, and maybe reporting on it as it develops further. Other uses, I mean, we've obviously got one big use in terms of language on a bridge. Language of the sea is English, but it's not always, and it's not a instance in collisions and elisions where it's been down to communication on the bridge. The pilot has been talking maybe to the tugboat in his native language. The captain hasn't understood fully what's going on, hasn't been able to have adequate control of his vessel, and it's resulted in collisions and elisions, groundings, etc. Now, with AI, we can have a real-time translator on the bridge, just in a box, in a speaker, in a smart speaker, in the ceiling, telling the captain what's going on when the pilot decides, in a bit of a panic, to talk to either somebody else on the VHF on another ship, or on the tug that's assisting the berthing in his own language. That's going to be extremely useful. And of course, voyage route optimization. That's really going to benefit everyone in shipping. Could make voyages quicker, more efficient, saving fuel, avoiding heavy weather conditions, and avoiding port congestion. An instance that can happen there. All events that affect us here in this room. Avoidance of collisions, of course. That's a big issue. With the integration of cameras, I mean, Collisions obviously should be avoided if you're looking out of the bridge window all the time. But with the aid of cameras and thermal imaging, radar, AIS, and combining all this with weather data, visibility, etc., if AI can analyze all that, they might be able to spot things that the human eye can't, or spot it in time to make an adjustment, rather than a big container ship coming out of the fog directly at you. It's a bit too late now. Make a big turn, you're going to end up with a collision. That could have been anticipated with the aid of AI, hopefully. And fire detection. Now, this is an important one and of great interest. Fire detection is on all ships. We've got CCTV, we've got fire detectors, but you can't have a crew member sitting there watching CCTV 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's not going to happen. So that little event that might happen on a car carrier, for example, or a ferry, a little spark or a high temperature that emanates from one of the vehicles, can be spotted by AI who's sitting there watching it all, and highlights that there's a problem here, and it could be an intervention. The person could be sent down to go and have a look, and potentially a fire could be stopped. So in general, AI is definitely going to help shipping. And one warning about AI is that it does rely on data, and it relies on data input. And that's the onus that's going to be put on crew members and shipping companies to make sure these AI machines are going to learn with the necessary data. So that's another issue that's going to arise. Total loss data. This is a slide from this is Lloyd's List casualty data. I've pinched out of Allianz's annual report. So showing the total losses on the decline year by year, and 70% decline over the past decade. So something's going right in terms of safety at sea. But the average cost of machinery claims is rising. This is from IUMI's statistics in September. And we've got some possible drivers for this machinery cost claims. Is inflation, of course, is a factor. Ships are getting older. There's more ships. There's less scrapping going on at the moment. It's aging. Higher complexity of machinery. And that's a big factor. Machinery is becoming more complicated, more electronics, more electrics involved. And of course, electrics always come with a higher cost. And other technical issues as well as crewing issues, of course. I had to mention this one, of course, because this is the biggest event this year. And what's so interesting about it, apart from the huge cost, was that the port was blocked for 11 weeks. I'm sure everybody is aware of this, but just to remind everyone, on the 26th of March, the container ship Dali struck the bridge in Baltimore, and it collapsed. 6 workers were killed, and a lot more were injured. But the port was blocked for 11 weeks, so that was a huge expense, with business interruption. The estimated commercial impact was $15 million a day, and the estimate to replace the bridge is 1.7 to 1.9 billion, and that's scheduled for 2028, I believe. Big money. And the causation, ultimately, a loose wire, something very simple. That's not confirmed yet, but everything's leading towards that. And again, that's not from us. This is information in the public domain. But there was a blackout, loss of power, loss of propulsion. That's the primary cause. But the root cause there was an electrical fault, and it could be down to something simple like a loose wire, blown fuse, something like that, a short circuit. So that can be a very expensive loose wire, you think. So looking back at ABL's top 5, I'm not going to list these. I'm just demonstrating the extent of the claims we've seen this year. There are some other cases in this list which we can't mention because they're still active and contentious. But you can see that our top 5 this year have ranged from 25 million to a lower 5.5 million. But the average costs over the year remain at about 1 million, which is pretty much the same as last year and the years before. Now, looking forward to 2025, and this is the big question: what can we expect to see in shipping next year? Well, my first slide, I showed some pictures of some of the influencers that influenced geopolitical events last year. I've added a few this year. I've put in our Prime Minister because he's worth mentioning at the moment. But of course, there's the addition of Donald Trump and Elon Musk as to influencers this year. So when Trump gets in for his second term later this month, he's promised some considerable changes. How many of these will actually happen? Who knows? Is it all just smoke and mirrors? But he's promised an end to the Ukraine-Russian war, which we would like to see, of course. The sooner that's done, the better. But there's going to be some winners and losers in that. Let's hope he can solve that particular problem. And then this is just news that's arrived this week. So I'm here writing this report, and then suddenly I've got the news on, and then I hear that Trump's going to purchase Greenland from Denmark. So I better research this just to have a look at it. But it's an interesting topic. It's not really directly going to affect shipping as such, but it does show that he's got some very interesting ideas. Personally, I don't think that one's going to get very far, but there is action in that environment. And the Panama Canal, that's a big issue for shipping. I mentioned last year that there's been a drought in the canal in Panama for a year or so, and that's resulted in less transit and higher cost of transit. And that's what Trump appears to have jumped on, is why are the Panamanians charging so much for a transit now? But there are reasons for it. But regardless, he said, if they don't sort that out, he's going to take it over because it's an American canal. Okay, we'll see what happens there. But it has happened in the past. And the Americans have invaded Panama, thrown out Noriega, the dictator, in the early 80s. It can happen. It can happen. Annexation of Canada is another interesting one. I can't see that happening, but he's toying with it. And war with the Mexican cartels, changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of the United States. All quite radical changes, but let's just go and see. What will affect us, no doubt, it's affected us in the past and it's going to affect us now, is China and USA trade war, which is imminent. When he gets into power, there's going to be some heavy tariffs on China, and there'll be retaliatory tariffs, and that will have an effect on us, no doubt. It could mean, it could mean the cost of Chinese products going up. It could be a lack of Chinese products. Anyway, it will imminently, it will have an effect, no doubt about it. And he's demanding that Hamas release the Israeli hostages immediately. I mean, great. I mean, we all want to see that. How that's going to develop and how the Israeli-Iran, war is going to develop, we don't know, and we can't forecast that. But it will have an effect on shipping. Other developments, decarbonisation has been ticking along quite nicely. I've shown you some slides there. I think that's going to accelerate this year. We're going to see some big developments. We're already seeing future fuels actually be coming to the forefront now, and we're seeing some leaders. Wind propulsion, I mention this quite frequently because it's quite close to ABL's heart. That's going to take off this year. There are more ships being fitted with this on new builds, not so much in the retrofits market, but new builds, bulk carriers. A lot of them are being fitted. I think it's a percentage of like 35-40% of new bulk carriers are being fitted with wind-assisted propulsion. So again, something to keep an eye on in this room. You know, these things are going to be insured by you potentially, and it's new technology and probably going to be quite expensive. So new building prices are set to come down due to supply and demand. So that's going to flood the market with new builds. We're going to see more scrapping this year. That's inevitable. AI, as I mentioned, will start to deliver benefits in all sorts of ways that we can see, we can imagine, and some things that we can't imagine. And last thing, you know, we expect the unexpected, because that's the nature of world politics and shipping. Vessels, just to mention an update on it now. The International Maritime Organization, IMO, are finalising and adopting a voluntary marine autonomous surface ship code, mass code. So the IMO is a slow-moving machine, as we all know, but this is a landmark stage here, where they're actually recognising that autonomous shipping is here, and a code is being hopefully developed and will be adopted to assist with that, because there are currently 1,000 remote controlled and autonomous vessels around the world. Again, this ties in with that slide in the Black Sea with autonomous drones. This technology is going to move quickly, and with AI also, you know, being involved, I believe we're going to see ships without people on much more regularly. To mention nuclear, I ended up the last year with a slide on nuclear. It's, as far as I'm concerned, the cleanest, most effective form of propulsion, and really it's got that stigma, and the stigma, I think, is going away a little bit, I think, because people are understanding that there's different types of reactor that are available, and this initiative by Norway's new pro ship has evaluated 3 different types of small modular reactors. Now, these are small salt-based reactors, not these the ones that caused all the problems in the past. Much safer and smaller and easier to use and manage. They've identified 3 types, and these are going to be moved into the next step of evaluation as potential viable, you know, means of powering ships. So it's moving on. So nuclear is still with us. And with that, I'll finish up with any questions, either in the room or online. Nope. Well, I'm available afterwards anyway, if you want to you know, have a chat about any of these topics. And you can always find me in the ABL website. So moving on to next slide, the learning objectives. Just got to mention this for our purposes. Hopefully, you will have been able to see, you know, list the significant events, and you'll be able to discuss the trends. You also have an understanding of what's potentially going to happen in 2025, and where are some of the new regulations, although there aren't that many this year. So before I go on to the marine casualty reports, this is the end of the talk for those of you online. We invite you to join us again in February for our market briefing. But now we're going offline, so thank you very much for listening and going online in the room. Thank you.